You know, in every organization out there, whether it's a tiny startup or a massive global company, they're all wrestling with the exact same puzzle. How do you give your customers more value but do it with fewer resources? It's the core challenge of business today. And we're about to unpack the framework that solves it, a philosophy called Lean. So, we're going to tackle this just like a consultant would with a really clear roadmap. We'll start with why Lean is so critical, the mandate for it. Then we'll get into its big operational goal, which is just in time. After that, we'll do a deep dive into the 5 principles that are the real foundation of Lean, see how it all works with a great real-world example, and then wrap up with a game plan you can actually start using right away.
All right, let's jump into section 1, the mandate for Lean. And yeah, we're calling it a mandate for a reason, because in today's world, being efficient isn't just a nice to have. It's really about survival.
This is the big question, isn't it? It's the one every single leader and team should be obsessed with. How do you get more out while putting less in? It kind of sounds impossible, like a paradox, but Lean gives us the strategy to actually crack that code. And here's the answer. Lean is a philosophy that is absolutely laser-focused on one mission, maximizing customer value. And the way it does that isn't by making people work harder. It's about working smarter. It's about becoming a detective, hunting down and getting rid of anything in a process that doesn't add value for the customer. And that stuff, that's what we call waste. Okay, so that brings us to our second section. Let's talk about the ultimate goal of Lean in practice. To really get how powerful this is, you have to understand the shift from just in case to just in time. And trust me, this is a total game changer. The whole idea behind just in time is beautifully simple. Nothing sits around waiting. I'm talking about raw materials, project tasks, data, whatever it is, it should show up at the exact moment it's needed for the next step, not a second sooner. Because anything that arrives early isn't efficient. It's just expensive inventory that's tying up cash and creating clutter. This table just lays it all out so clearly. Look at the left side. That's the old push system. It runs on forecasts, basically just guessing what customers are going to want. And what does that lead to? Huge stockpiles of inventory and a massive risk of making too much stuff nobody wants. Now, look at the right side. That's the lean pull system. It's driven by real customer demand. Nothing gets made until an order comes in. Work is pulled through the system, not pushed. Inventory stays super low, and waste is designed out from the get-go. See? It's a completely different way of thinking. So, how do we actually build one of these super efficient pull systems? Well, that brings us to the real heart of this whole thing. The 5-principle framework. You can think of this as the operating system for Lean. It's the repeatable logic you can use to implement it anywhere. So here they are. These 5 principles are all interlocked, and this is key. You have to do them in order. You have to start by defining value. Then you map out the entire process that delivers that value. Next, you make that process flow smoothly. Then you set up a system so customers can pull value from you. And finally, you commit to this ongoing cycle of pursuing perfection. Okay, principle 1. This one sounds so simple, but honestly, it's the most important step. Value is not what your company thinks it is. It's not what your engineers think it is. Value is defined only by the customer. It's whatever they are willing to open their wallet for, period. Any step, any feature they don't care about is, by definition, waste. Everything else starts from here. Right, so once you know what value is, you have to map the value stream. That means looking at every single action, from the very beginning to the final delivery, that's required to create that value. The point here isn't just to draw a pretty flowchart. The goal is to make the waste visible. And the Japanese term for this waste is muda, and your job is to become a muda hunter. And here's where it gets really powerful. For every single step on your map, you ask one simple question. Is my customer willing to pay for this? If the answer is yes, great, that's a value-added activity. If the answer is no, then it's non-value added. It's waste. And suddenly, your mission is crystal clear. Eliminate the waste and pour all your energy into making the valuable steps even better. So, once you've cleared out the obvious waste, principle 3 is all about making the remaining steps flow. The goal here is to get rid of every single bottleneck, every delay, every time work is just sitting in a queue. It should move from one step to the next seamlessly, almost like water flowing in a river. This focus dramatically shortens the time from when a customer orders to when they get what they want. And this is where that pull concept we talked about becomes a reality. Once you have good flow, you stop just pushing work down the line. Instead, the next person in the process pulls the work from the previous person, but only when they're ready for it. This creates a chain reaction that goes all the way back to the start, and it's all triggered by one thing: a real customer order. This is the secret to making overproduction basically impossible.
And finally, we have the principle that turns lean from a one-off project into a company culture. Pursue perfection. This is not a one-and-done kind of thing. It's a commitment to always getting better. The moment you finish one cycle through these principles, you start all over again. Because no matter how good you get, there's always more waste to find. The hunt for that perfect, waste-free process never, ever ends.
Okay, I know these principles can seem a little bit abstract, so let's bring this all down to earth with a perfect example of a pull system that pretty much everyone understands: getting your daily coffee at Starbucks. Just think about it for a second. Starbucks doesn't make 100 lattes at 7 a.m. hoping you'll buy one, right? That would be a super wasteful push system. No, the entire process doesn't start until you place an order. Your order is the pull signal. That one action triggers the whole value stream. The barista pulls a cup, they pull the milk, they pull a shot of espresso. Everything is pulled just in time for your specific order. And the final coffee is delivered exactly when it's needed, with almost no waste. It's perfect. All right, we've gone through the strategy, we've gone through the principles. Now, let's talk about execution. This last section is your toolkit. It's a 6-step plan, straight from lean thinking, that you can use to start improving flow in your own work, like tomorrow. The method here is super logical. First, you have to map out your current process. You can't improve what you don't understand. Next, list out all the problems you know about, and really focus on finding that muda, the waste. Then, the fun part. You design the ideal future. What would this process look like if it was perfect? Once you have that vision, you build an action plan to get from here to there. And finally, and this is so important, you monitor the new process with real numbers to make sure your improvements stick. And then you start the cycle all over again. And really, this is the main takeaway. Lean is not about cracking the whip and making people work harder. It's about empowering them. It's about redesigning the system so that their work is easier, smoother, and more focused on what actually matters, creating value for your customer. It is the absolute definition of working smarter. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought, a bit of a challenge. As you go about your work tomorrow, try to look at everything through this lean lens. What's the biggest source of waste you see? Is it waiting around, reworking things, unnecessary steps? And more importantly, what's one small thing you can do right now to start making it just a little bit better?